than our guy Shefty. Shefty, we have had an eye on Kellen Moore potentially joining you down in New Orleans to become the Saints head coach soon. What's going on with that situation?
Field, he is coaching on Sunday in the Super Bowl, in the Superdome, and is shaping up for Kellen Moore to stay in New Orleans as the Saints' next head coach. Now, the Saints are doing everything they can to obey the rules and make sure that they don't do anything illegal or that the Eagles could come after them on. But barring a change of heart, it is shaping up for Kellen Moore to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. The Saints will look to speak to him again next week to see if they can get a deal done. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Rams are in the market to trade Cooper Kupp. They informed him this week that they would look to trade him immediately. He then announced that news, and the Rams know how much money is left in his contract, and they're willing to do their part to try to help move him. If we think back to last offseason, Keenan Allen went for a fourth-round pick, and there are people around the league who believe it could be a similar situation with the Rams taking on some of that salary. There's a $7.5 million roster bonus due on the 5th day of the league year, so the Rams could chip in and obviously be a part of paying some of that. And also, we should just mention that the NFL just announced that it will play a regular season game in Australia in 2026, and the Rams will play in the first game in Melbourne, Australia.
Well, Adam, I have a message for, I guess that was to be management, leadership. We are all available. The three of us that are here today in Bristol are available to travel to Melbourne in 2026. We will start booking our flights accordingly. Shefty, we'll talk to you again in just a little bit. But time now for some new sound here on NFL Live is Myles Garrett, for now, Cleveland Browns defensive end, talked to our own Mina Kimes today. Take a listen.
Someone who's in position to contend soon or right away. And I could come in and still play my brand of football. I don't want to have to change up my game too much, and I don't think they'd want to as coaching and my teammates. I think we can try to elevate each other, and I can take someone over the hump.
It's no secret that quarterback has been the issue in Cleveland. When you look ahead again to potential spots, is that something that's important to you? Go joining a team where the quarterback is set and ready to compete? Absolutely.
I mean, with any playoff team or any championship team, they're going to have a quarterback, a good quarterback, and you've seen some game managers go out there with a great defense and win it all. But if you want to consistently be at the top, you got to have a really good quarterback, and that's hopefully where I'd find myself.
You can catch the entirety of this interview over on Mina's YouTube channel at 5 Eastern today. But Shefty, what more can you add on this situation that you reported on a couple of days ago?
Well, here's the situation. Myles Garrett has told the Cleveland Browns that he would like a trade. He's gone public with that demand. Now the question is, what do the Cleveland Browns do with that information? They have been very leery of trading him. They've been public in their stance that they do not want to trade him, that they wouldn't take 2 first-round picks to trade him. And so the question becomes is, how dug in is Myles Garrett? How far is he willing to take this? Because right now the Browns are not of the mindset to move on from arguably the best defensive player in football, no matter how much he wants to move on. We've seen other players who have demanded trades, Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk in recent years, only to wind up staying with their respective teams. Now, those players wanted new contracts, and this is not contract driven. This is about Myles Garrett wanting to play for what he believes to be a contender, which the Browns have not been. So it will be up to these two sides to try to figure out a solution that is not so simple to figure out right now, and it looks like it could go on for quite some time because he wants that trade. The Browns don't want to trade him. Each side is dug in at this point in time, and we'll see how it winds up playing out in the weeks to come.
Well, for those of you that think the NFL offseason begins on Monday, you are gravely mistaken, as there is no offseason in the NFL, especially when you are the man who creates the news like Adam Schefter. Hawk, let's dive into the situation a little bit more.
Yeah.
What do you think about what you heard from Myles Garrett? Obviously, we'll hear a whole lot more at 5 Eastern on Mina's show.
Of course. I mean, you know what level of player Myles Garrett is. And for someone who has done everything in his power to make the Browns a winner, and he's almost 30 years old, he is routinely the best defensive player in the NFL. It's the one thing that's always going to be missing from his resume if he doesn't get close to a Super Bowl. For me, it sounds like that more than anything, he wants a plan. If it is with the Cleveland Browns, like there has to be a detailed plan to get him out of the transfer portal, which I don't know if they're going to have for where he's at in his career because, like I said, he's one of the best defensive players of the last decade, and he probably still doesn't get talked about enough and doesn't get as much attention as his play deserves.
And it's because he's on a bad team. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it ends up working. And so, listen, if it's not about money, which is obviously what Adam's talking about, it not being about money, like he's a guy that's already made $125 million playing football, right? Like he's going to make a lot of money over the next 2 years under the current contract. So if it really is about like, look, I'm just unhappy here because I don't think we're going to be good. You heard him talk about the quarterback position for the team he's currently on. Like at some point, and he's always been, I think, a good teammate, a good guy in the locker room, a good leader for the team. So, like, they haven't experienced an unhappy Myles Garrett there in Cleveland before. But if he decides to go that route, like, that might be too much for the team to absorb. So their posture may be, hey, look, we don't want to move him. But, like, at some point when you have a guy that's always been a good guy that now all of a sudden is like, look, I don't want to be here. I'm unhappy. Like, get me out of here. Like, you kind of are forced at that point to do something with him.
Well, we're a little over 12 weeks away from the NFL draft. Not that I'm counting, but that certainly could be a deadline that has at least some bearing for a player that would command a lot in terms of draft compensation. Can't wait to follow. The left is Andrew Hawkins. I am Field Yates, and Adam Schefter will be with us from New Orleans in just a few moments. As you guys may have heard, there is a game being played this Sunday involving the Eagles and the Chiefs. The Eagles had their first practice of Super Bowl week today, and a man who knows this team in and out, Sal Paolantonio, has been covering them all week for us. Sal, good afternoon to you. What has Vic Fangio's message been to his defense as it prepares to play the great Patrick Mahomes?
You got to play disciplined football, Field Yates. We're at the Eagles Hotel in downtown New Orleans. You can hear helicopters swirling around. Security is pretty high. About 7 miles away, the Philadelphia Eagles are practicing. First practice here in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59. That practice will go another 30 minutes. In the meantime, earlier today, had conversations with Vic Fangio and the defensive players of this football team. Number one defense in the NFL, number one pass defense in the NFL. But, and there's always a big but in Super Bowls, is how do you contain Patrick Mahomes II? And I want you to listen specifically to the answers from Vic Fangio and some of his defensive stars. Listen to this.
If you're rushing four guys, they got to rush as one. Can't have one guy way over here, one guy way over there, and there's a lane for him to go. You got to be tight in coverage. This is his 7th or 8th year as a starter. Nobody's gotten the formula to beat him one way. You know, you got to play good. The fundamentals. You know, if you're not good on your fundamentals, he'll make you pay.
I think when we have an opportunity to pressure him, getting him on the ground is key. Not letting him get that second play within the play started.
Is there a spy system involved? You or Oren Burks? Or
I can't tell you. I can't tell you the secret sauce.
Nobody's giving away the secret sauce of a spy system at this juncture of the season on Patrick Mahomes II. But if you watch what the Philadelphia Eagles did against Jaden Daniels in the NFC Championship game, as Vic Fangio said, they rushed 4, dropped 7. So they're playing zone behind a 4-man rush. But they did use Oren Burks as a spy on Jaden Daniels most of the time, especially on 3rd and 4th down. And this is where Patrick Mahomes II, as you know, Field Yates, can absolutely destroy a football game. There really are 2 defenses you play on the down. One is when he snaps it and he's in the pocket. The second defense goes into motion once he leaves the pocket. Where is he? How do you contain him? And then you got to find Travis Kelce and plaster him so he doesn't get the football. It's intricate and complicated. And as C.J. Gardner-Johnson told me, understanding your keys, knowing your leverage, knowing where your help is, and continuing to trust each other. You got all that, Field Yates?
I got it all, Sal Pal. As always, you deliver the most comprehensive reports and more. Enjoy a great week down there in New Orleans. We're very jealous of the weather up here in Connecticut, where it's about 9 degrees out. You mentioned keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field, Sal Pal. One way the Chiefs can do that is by running the football. The Eagles can do that is by running the football effectively themselves, as their offense has averaged over 179 rushing yards per game during the regular season. That's the 4th highest mark by any team that made the Super Bowl after the 72 Dolphins, the 75 Steelers, and the 7-3 Dolphins, who, as you may know, all ended up winning the Super Bowl in those respective years. Get this, the Eagles actually finished with more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns this season. It's been a minute since we had a Super Bowl champion who did that. You've got to go all the way back to the 95 Cowboys. All right, so Tim, clearly the Chiefs' focus this week defensively is going to be on slowing down Saquon Barkley, but how can the Eagles make best use of their all-everything running back?
Just stay patient, Field. I mean, look, we just had that graphic up there. It's like the teams. Like those other teams played in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Like people used to run the ball in the 70s. Right. Like this is a passing league, but the Eagles are just as likely to get a big play by handing the ball off on split zone or outside zone or some pin and pull play. Like they get big plays running the football. I think the biggest key for them is don't get discouraged, don't get impatient with it. It's a long game, long half times, long timeouts, all that stuff. Yeah. Don't get impatient with it. Just continue to stay on schedule, continue to run the football. You have a chance. They got a great O-line. They have a quarterback that's a threat as a runner, which keeps people honest. And then they have a back that as soon as somebody jumps out of a gap, all of a sudden what for most teams is an 8-yard run, for them is a 62-yard run.
And that's the beautiful part about Saquon. I know we talked about it ad nauseum, but to your point, it's like, it's so easy for teams to feel like the run game isn't being effective, but one play changes all of that for Saquon. And even running backs with the same height, weight, speed, the way he sets up blocks and creates those seams, to your point, if somebody's a half a person out of a gap, they turn into 30-plus yard runs. The other thing I would look for is Saquon out of the backfield as a receiving option. You saw Cook have a lot of success at that last week against the Eagles, and then what that does for the pass game is it opens it up, yes, to A.J. Brown, but Devontae Smith. That matchup with Jalen Watson is what I'm looking at. When I look at this secondary for the Chiefs, who has been playing much better since Watson has come back from his injury, but they have never gone against, this season, 2 top-tier receivers on one squad. When they played the Bengals, T. Higgins was out. When they played the Bucs, there was no Godwin or Evans. And when they played the Niners, there was no Debo. So I'm curious to see how they approach that, knowing that they're going to be fixated on stopping Saquon in the run.
The Eagles are certainly a balanced offense. Just go back to Saquon for 1 second. How about this? Steve Spagnuolo, the incredible Chiefs defensive coordinator, has been with the team since 2019. They have not allowed a single 100-yard rusher during the playoffs, and they play in like 4 playoffs games every single year. Time now for us to shift our attention to some top stories, and who better to bring in for the top story?